All right, let's get straight back into Friday feedback. Jane Marwick's on her way. This is a segment I love because I always want to know and get your take on the biggest issues of the week. So my question to you today on Facebook was this. Given Victoria's record case numbers to 428 today, do you have any confidence the government will be able to get this outbreak under control? Well, here's what you had to say. Steve Farrell says time for the Commonwealth to step in and take charge of Victoria and step on Daniel Andrews and his cabinet. Sort this mess out once and for all. Terry Murphy thinks if they can manage to control it and get the numbers down, it will be because of good luck and not good management. Tony Hull believes only the people themselves can get this under control, but only if everyone does their bit and uses common sense. Colette Crotty says the Victorian government definitely no. The federal government perhaps. Everything they do in Victoria is just a comedy of errors. And Barbara Benefield believes no. Andrews is a complete failure. Hope Victorians have the sense to vote him out. Let's bring in my Sky News contributor, podcast host Jane Marwick and good friend from Perth. It's pretty willing over here on the East Coast. Jane, from your sanctuary of the West, you must be looking back here and think this is just a circus.
I feel really sorry for you, and we were shocked. I was absolutely shocked. 317 yesterday. Now, I know these aren't big numbers compared to the United States or the United Kingdom or, you know, Italy and all of those, but in Australia these are really big numbers, and as you have been at pains to point out, completely avoidable. 317 yesterday, 428 today. Listening to Brett Sutton, it seems to me that they're expecting those numbers to go up and up. But what really concerns me and everyone who's following this is the community transfer and the fact that they've got hundreds of people testing positive for COVID-19, Peter, and they simply don't know where they've got that virus from. Now, interestingly enough, I was just speaking with Claire Armstrong from the Daily Telegraph on my podcast, and we were comparing the New South Wales government's handling of this, not the Ruby Princess, but this latest outbreak, and the Victorian government's. And New South Wales, Kerry Chant is saying, the Chief Medical Officer there, they come out straight away the minute they get a positive test. They tell you where it was. They tell the public as soon, even as fast as they're telling the businesses, because they want to jump on this. And we're still not getting enough clarity from Victoria. We heard that story about the Black Lives Matter protesters who are linked to some of those people in the 9 residential towers that were locked down, and that complete lockdown. We still don't know what those connections and contacts were. I don't feel that the Victorian government is still on its game. I know Daniel Andrews seems
Jane,
a lot more contrite.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I had a bloke on this week who ran an abattoir, and he had a number of cases.
I saw him.
One case in particular, yes. And he said that when his worker, a meat inspector, called in, had the test, was told he was positive, they didn't ask him where he worked. They weren't asking about connections. He was then waiting for the worker's boss to be notified, and the worker stood down, or whatever the process might be. And he said that the owner, only when the worker says to me, I've got COVID, I've told them, I'm surprised they haven't told you, that he took the owner matters into his own hands. So I think it's extraordinary. Yeah. I think there's a level of inconsistency with the advice, and I think a lot of people are losing confidence that the system has got enough people working in it, particularly in the tracing end, to get us out of the hole we're in. And, you know, look at the whole issue with masks. I have been watching this unfold for months and months and months, thinking, why are they wearing masks overseas? Why haven't we been told to wear masks here? We were then told in some part they weren't needed, or worse, that they would make things more risky for Australians. Don't wear masks was the advice. Then we were told, obviously, there wasn't enough. Finally, now they're told to wear the masks, that perhaps it's our fastest way back to normality. And now it's not just Melburnians, it's everyone in Victoria being told to wear a mask. And I went back again on Facebook today and just asked that question about masks. I mean, do you think it's been inconsistent advice? I asked my Facebook viewers, and this is what they had to say. Warren Giffen thinks that the use of masks has certainly not been consistent. There also needs to be a degree of common sense and personal responsibility exercised. Mark Roberts believes it's been very inconsistent. The federal government should take this and everything out of state and local council control. Aurelia Simone thinks wear a mask. Buy Australian. You don't have to Wait to be advised. Protect yourself as much as possible. Sylvia Smith believes very little advice about this virus is consistent. I have to agree with her there. Darren Kennedy says, what advice? Jane?
Yeah, Darren's right. What advice? I mean, the fact that we're a federation, Peter, means that the federal government sort of can't come in and take over. But what intrigues me about this, I'm with you. We were talking about masks last week and I went to the shops and I was looking at masks. So here's another thing that gets all messed up in this. The Therapeutic Goods Administration has sort of, Sue Dunleavy's run a story where she's spoken to them, and this story was earlier in the week. There were, on the 22nd of March, a whole lot of masks. The federal government said, yes, let the masks in. A whole lot of masks came into Australia, but not all of them are fit for what people think they're fit for. So there were complaints from healthcare workers. So the TGA sort of started asking questions, and if you go to the TGA's website, there are more than 200 masks where the so-called sponsors of those masks, the importers, have declared no, they're not for surgical use. But if you're a shopper like me, last week I was getting masks for you, I was getting masks for other people in Victoria, and I was reading all of the labels. I was in a hardware store thinking these are made in China, I don't know if they'll be good enough. No, I don't want made in China because I've got my suspicions. So I was going to various chemists, and to me, this adds to the garbled messaging around masks. What we need to know, and I wish the TGA would put out big media statements, we need to know, are all of the masks that we are purchasing at chemist shops or hardware shops, because there's a loophole that they can still be sold but they're not for surgical use. Well, can we have really clear labelling? We need clear labelling. There are certain fines and things associated with this, Peter, but as a punter, Jane, as a consumer, really you're rushing around. You really need to know if they're right. Yeah,
it's really simple. Someone in Canberra should take the COVID safe logo, and anyone who has TGA approval, which they've already gone through that hurdle, this is just a marketing exercise now, take that and authorise, like the old Buy Australia kangaroo or Australian-made kangaroo, allow them to use the COVID safe logo. And then when you're in the shop and there's 15 different masks to choose from, you go for the ones that have got the green logo on and you know they're safe. Now, we're going to be with this disease for some time, until we get a virus. Masks will be on the table and we'll be told to wear them for some time. So let's just give people the information and the advice. They're not cheap. Thank you kindly for sending them, because they're just about sold out in Melbourne, Jane. But I mean, they're not cheap, so give people the right information. They've already, as I said, gone through that hurdle of whether they're allowed to come into Australia or not. Let's just stop the rorting that's going on. Let's just stop the rip-offs that we're getting from some of the ones made in China.
You're right, but we need the sticker because some of them are made in Japan. For instance, this one here that I bought is made in Japan. So there are 200 on the TGA's website that you can go and look at and say, well, is this mask that I bought, is this fit for use or not? But I want a better campaign. I want the public, not just people who are watching Peta Credlin tonight or who read Sue Dunleavy. I want everyone to know that there are question marks around some of these masks. The whistle was blown by healthcare workers who went, hang on a minute, but the loophole is, Peter, that these non-surgical masks that look like surgical masks can still be sold in hardware stores and various shops throughout Australia. That, to me, is not good enough. That needs tidying up, and it needs to be messaged loud and clear now for people in Victoria.
I will ring the ministers responsible. It's predominantly consumer affairs is a state issue, but there's plenty of ministers in Canberra with not a lot on their desk while everybody else is focused on this. So I will make some calls and see what we can do. Hey, just before we go, I want to ask you, you had Peter Strong. He's on he's the head of the Council of Small Business. COSBOA. You had him on your podcast. What did he have to say?
Basically, he is saying that JobKeeper, JobSeeker, these have all been great measures. The federal government jumped out quickly and we applaud them for that. But what he's hearing from some small businesses is the money still isn't coming in, and they love their staff. They're trying to keep them on with JobKeeper, the $750 a week, but they've got no money coming into that business, and those staff members, Peter, those employees are still accruing entitlements, holiday pay, sick pay and the like. And what he's saying to these businesses, and it might be you watching us tonight, if you're in that boat, he's saying it's a horrible message, but better to close down and open up when conditions improve, because his fear is that there might be quite a few small businesses who find themselves in a lot of debt trying to look after their employees' entitlements, and they simply won't have the money to do that. So I thought that was interesting. I spoke to another business operator today, and this is an interesting one, Peter, who had a staff member on JobKeeper. She's taken maternity leave. He's had to replace her, but that new person doesn't get JobKeeper, even though he's 30% down in his business.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's all the devil in the
messy,
detail.
isn't it?
We'll have some clarity next Thursday when the Treasurer makes an announcement and lays out where we go with JobKeeper beyond September. Jane Marwick, as always, thank you for your time. And you can all catch Jane on her podcast, The Jane Marwick Show. Head to iTunes or wherever else you go for your wonderful podcast. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Peter.